My name is Myra. I reconnected with Corey, my current partner, at a high school reunion. Back in high school, we just knew each other's names and faces. But we hit it off at the reunion after sitting next to each other and started dating soon after. Corey proposed to me recently, so we're getting married. I had met my future in-laws, father-in-law, and mother-in-law a few times since Corey and I started dating. The only person I hadn't met was Corey's sister, Kristen. While father-in-law and mother-in-law always welcomed me warmly, Kristen would never come out of her room, and it's been bothering me. What does Kristen think of me?
Don't worry about her. She's just shy.
On the day of the family meeting, Corey tried to calm my nerves by saying that Kristen was just shy. I felt relieved hearing Corey's words, but we soon discovered that the assumption she's just shy was a major mistake. We're so happy that you're going to be Corey's wife.
Corey, you've really stepped up. Make sure you make Myra happy. I will.
Both father-in-law and mother-in-law were thrilled when we told them we're getting married. Just need to tell Kristen too, mother-in-law said, leaving her seat. As Corey, father-in-law, and I were chatting, a loud voice came from Kristen's room.
What?
Startled, we heard the sound of a door slamming. Kristen stormed into the room and glared at me.
I will never accept this marriage.
As I stood there shocked, mother-in-law followed Kristen, saying,
Hold on, Kristen.
But Kristen didn't stop.
Marriage is disgusting. Just the thought of having strangers in the house is bad enough. But getting married? Seriously, no way. That's just gross.
Kristen!
Father-in-law raised his voice in anger, but Kristen ignored him, scanning me from head to toe. Then, crossing her arms, she snorted.
Corey's taste in women is just awful. Why on earth would he marry someone as unattractive as you? Just thinking about what the kids would look like sends shivers down my spine. Can Corey even handle raising a child like this?
Of course he can. What are you even saying, sis?
Anyway, I'm against this marriage. I don't want her in our family. Don't you dare show your face here ever again.
At Kristen's outburst, Corey and his parents scramble in panic.
Stop it!
They all try to silence Kristen, their voices seeming to echo from far away. Gathering myself, I stood up and said something I never thought I would say. Fine. I won't ever come back to this house.
Myra, I'm sorry for my sister. I want to marry you.
Yeah, I still want to marry Corey. We will get married, but I will never come to this house again, and I will never see Kristen for the rest of my life. This discussion is over.
I said I don't want you to get married.
Ignoring Kristen's yelling, I started to prepare to leave. As I was leaving, I looked at Kristen and said, I don't need your approval for the marriage. Corey's parents' blessing is more than enough. Rest assured, since we'll never meet again, there won't be any awkward family get-togethers. No matter how much you object, I won't give up marrying Corey. Goodbye. I'll never forget what you've said to me. Keeping a straight face, I bid my goodbyes to my shocked in-laws and left. I hurried home, with Corey frantically following behind, apologizing with a near-teary face. Truth be told, I was really hurt by Kristen's words. once we were out of sight of his parents and Kristen, tears started to flow as Corey apologized to me.
It's really sad that your sister won't accept our marriage and that I can never return to that house. But I still want to marry you, Corey. I'm sorry I'm not the woman Kristen thinks I should be.
Holding back tears and with a trembling voice, I got hugged by Corey, who told me,
"You've done nothing wrong, Myra."
Feeling his warmth, I reaffirmed my commitment to marrying Corey. As I had declared, Corey and I got married and started our life together. We had a wedding, and both of us agreed not to invite Kristen. Corey's parents repeatedly apologized for Kristen's behavior, but our relationship with them remained good. Blessed by the family, except Kristen, Corey and I started our married life. However, Kristen was furious when she found out we got married. She yelled at Corey over the phone on our wedding night.
Why did you marry such an awful woman? This is the worst!
Corey eventually just put his phone aside. Fed up with the noise, he finally said,
"Just leave us alone!"
in a tired voice as he hung up. Since then, our marriage has been problem-free. Since I had declared that I wouldn't visit my in-laws, I haven't been to their place since that day. Instead, my in-laws, concerned about our lives, have been visiting us occasionally. Whenever they visited, they apologized for Kristen's behavior, to which I would reply, "It's okay. I'm happy I married Corey." Looking back, I think it's a good thing we've cut ties with Kristen, who is quite a handful. If we hadn't, I shudder to think we'd still be hearing complaints from her. Then, just a few months into our marriage, I became pregnant. Corey was ecstatic. Even before we knew the baby's gender, he'd already started buying baby clothes and reading fatherhood books. I was feeling really happy. Then one day, I received a call from an unknown number. Though skeptical, I thought it might be from the maternity clinic or the local government office, so I answered. And I heard a voice I didn't want to hear.
Myra? Long time no see. It's your sister-in-law, Kristen.
Why is Kristen calling me now? Especially after she so adamantly rejected me becoming part of the family. Confused, I muttered, "Why?" And Kristen filled me in.
I found your number in Mom's phone,
Kristen informed me.
Corey has blocked me, so I thought I'd tell you.
Tell me what? Speaking in a much gentler tone than I remember, Kristen dropped a bombshell.
I'm getting married to Ronald, a classmate of you and Corey.
Ronald was indeed our high school classmate. According to Kristen, they started dating through a work connection, which happened to be Ronald. Both Kristen and Ronald work locally, so it's not surprising they'd cross paths. But I couldn't hide my shock that Kristen, who had been so against marriage, was now planning to tie the knot.
You're getting married? You, Kristen? Yes. Why the surprise tone? It's rude. Ronald will be at the next family meeting, so you both should come. It'll be weird if you weren't there.
Okay. Had Kristen forgotten everything she had said and done? She had yelled at me, humiliated Corey and her parents, and never once apologized. I felt the back of my head heat up with anger. "We'll be looking forward to it," I said, keeping my cool.
Just so you know, don't mess this up. If you ruin my marriage with Ronald, you won't get away with it.
After being told off by Kristen, I stood in front of the calendar. I circled the date Ronald told us he'd be coming for a family meeting at my in-laws. I waited for that day with bated breath. Days passed, and finally the day Ronald was set to visit arrived. Corey and I dressed up nicely and left our house to greet him. When we reached the front of my in-laws' property, it seemed Ronald had just arrived. Seeing Ronald and Kristen waving at us from their car, Corey and I smiled back.
It's been a while since the wedding. Myra and Corey, how have you been? We've been good, Ronald. Myra's expecting, actually. Really? Congratulations.
Ronald greeted me with his familiar, warm smile from high school. He leaned in towards the baby bump and said,
Can't wait for you to join us, little one.
Thank you, I replied. Standing next to Ronald, Kristen walks onto the property of her in-laws and gently says, Let's go. No, I responded with a smile. I'm not allowed inside the house anymore. So, Ronald, I'm sorry, but I'll have to consider this family meeting over.
Huh?
Kristen's face flushed with rage while Ronald looked puzzled. Realizing Ronald was clueless, I decided to clarify. When Corey and I came to introduce ourselves as a couple, Kristen opposed us. She said that we were not welcome, that our union was disgusting, and that we should never come back. We married despite her, and that's why she didn't come to our wedding.
What? Kristen told me she was sick during the wedding.
That's not true. Myra, what are you talking about? Stop lying.
Trying to suppress her anger, Kristen spouts lies. I can't help but chuckle. I mean, come on, Kristen. You've got amnesia or something? You've made fun of me countless times. You even told me to my face that I'm ugly. You said that the baby I'm expecting will have my face. And you questioned if Corey could raise such a child. Forgotten all that?
Ronald, everything Myra is saying is a complete lie. What are you talking about, Myra? Stop saying stupid stuff.
Kristen, just so you don't forget, let me remind you. I will never enter this house, and I will never forget what you've said to me. Kristen looks at me with cold eyes and forcibly grabs my hand.
Enough of this nonsense! Even Ronald is losing patience. Let's get inside.
Corey and Ronald release my hand from Kristen's forceful grip.
Ronald?
Kristen falls flat on her butt, looking dazed. Her pretty dress is now soiled with dirt. Ronald doesn't offer her a hand and just looks down at her.
Is what Myra's saying true?
It's a lie. All lies. Myra has a problem with making stuff up, right, Corey?
Kristen almost threatens with her tone, but Corey sighs.
Sis, you're embarrassing yourself. What Myra is saying is true. If you're thinking of marrying Ronald, you better acknowledge this aspect of yourself.
Upon hearing Corey's words, Ronald pauses for a moment and then starts walking towards the car.
Wait! Ronald!
Kristen chases after Ronald in her dirt-covered dress, but he won't let her into the car.
I may be overstepping by intervening in my brother's marriage, but I can't consider marrying someone who insults not just me, but even a child who isn't yet born. No offense to the family, but I'll be going home today. We'll talk some other time.
Don't say that! Please, Ronald!
Corey, Myra, thanks for letting me know about Kristen before we got married.
Ronald thanked us and drove away.
Wait up!
Kristen chased after the car, crying. Along the way, she stumbled and fell, continuing to cry. You'd think her own brother Corey would go to help, but instead, he takes my hand.
Let's go. I can't let someone who yanks a pregnant woman's hand around be in the same space as Myra.
As we walk back home, Kristen's cries linger for a while. After we get home, Corey contacts his parents-in-law. After being told to say our greetings, we stood at the front of the property and spilled the beans about the past. This led Corey to explain that Kristen and Ronald's engagement had probably fallen apart. My in-laws responded by saying,
It couldn't be helped.
When they visited us later, I apologized for what I had done to Kristen, even if it was out of revenge. They told me,
Don't worry, what she did was true.
According to my in-laws, Kristen had been shutting herself in her room ever since the engagement broke off. Ronald has a stable government job, and Kristen, who had thought she'd be living a stable life too, quit her job early on and is now unemployed. I heard she sneaks into the kitchen late at night to grab a meal as if she's stealing it, then goes back to her room, avoiding any contact with her parents. But Kristen is unpredictable. Both Corey and I have blocked Kristen's phone number. We moved to a bigger house since we have a baby on the way, and specifically asked my in-laws not to share our new address with Kristen. It seems like our decision was the right one. After we moved, Kristen went to our old place and began to bang and kick the front door, shouting,
Open up!
Because of her loud ruckus, a neighbor ended up reporting her to the police. It seemed like the in-laws were at their wits' end, dealing with Kristen, and after she caused some legal trouble, they kicked her out of their home. Regretting that they had spoiled Kristen, they gave her enough money to live on her own for a while. Since then, I've heard Kristen has been making ends meet in a small apartment with a part-time job. As for Corey and me, we welcomed a healthy, beautiful baby into the world. Just like Kristen said, our baby did look like me, and it was a very adorable little girl. Looking back at when Kristen opposed our marriage, I'm convinced that my unwavering decision to marry was the right one. Thanks to the courage I had back then to stand up to Kristen, I'm now enjoying a happy life with a loving husband and a cute daughter.